Guess what? I did some art. I was on the blue and green theme, so I decided to color another page from season of The Witch. And I initially started out with a lot of dark blues and black, and then a whole bunch of greens and some pinks and like violet purples. These are polychromos pencils, but you can totally use a less expensive brand like Crayola. I wanted to make a glow-in-the-dark pumpkin, a glow-in-the-dark green pumpkin, and then add some wild pink accents. I ended up not going with the pink and purple accents, and I kind of got some turquoise blue in there, which you'll see later. But I started out, I wanted a dark background, but I didn't want to fill the whole page. So I just started out with the indigo pencil. So I just continued on with the indigo pencil there and really got a nice shading on the bottom, and then I got a tiny bit lighter indigo, like a very, very, very dark purple blue. I think that one's called Delft. And touching very lightly, I started outlining it, leaving it a little bit sketchy, kind of unfinished, gently adding more pressure to it, and just sort of giving it a little bit of a rough background that's dark, not too much. And this is just one little corner of the page, so I wanted to leave it most of the page white. But anyway, then I started in on the pumpkin, and I used pink for the highlights, which I ended up erasing, but they sort of mark where I'm trying to leave white or light as I color this in. So just starting with my lightest bright greens, I'm focusing most of the color and the darkness on the bottom and in the ridges where the shadows would be, and then leaving the lights at the top. So I basically like totally went into an art trance and like was burning way more incense than I thought I would. And then my husband came in and he's like, "What are you doing? Are you having a seance?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm not having a seance." But I was totally like basically having an art seance. So it's funny being a witch sometimes. Anyway, just going back and forth between light pencils, really trying to leave highlights and then darken some of those ridges. And I think I went a little overboard with the dark, probably just because I was in like the art seance. So I took my little handy white eraser here and I started erasing. These are polychromos pencils, and I find they erase pretty well, but most colored pencils, if you don't press too hard originally, you can erase some of it. So sort of the lighter fluff and the highlight areas, you can usually use a white eraser and erase a little bit of that out. So then I liked the pumpkin, but I wanted to lighten it and then add some blue tones, because to me, a glow-in-the-dark green is a little bit blue. There's some kind of blue to it. So I just got a turquoise blue and sort of added some turquoise blue to the midtones and to the highlights. And then to accent that, I went with a blue flame here. Didn't plan it out too much, but tried to use a gradient between this nice light aqua and then a darker aqua, almost to a dark blue in the most shadowy parts of the flame here. And I just had a good time. I took my time. Little details here, little details in the corners, and just using, lots of little tiny shaded bits to give that nice flamey effect. I blended in the top a little bit darker, but tried to leave some white parts, some highlights, and then a lot of the shady, shadowy stuff in the tips and the corners, just to sort of blend that out. And I think the blue flames turned out pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm using 3 colors of pencil, the dark blue, the real light aqua, and sort of like a nice medium aqua. And then just blending it out. The center, just imagining that lit up by the flame, so lighter in the center, a little bit of dark shading on the edges. Nothing too fancy there. And then for the skull, I added a little bit more color to it, but using a picture of a skull for a reference just to get kind of the shading. I started with the lightest aqua just to add a little bit where the shadows fall, leaving white highlights, as you can see. Then I took the darkest blue, sort of the indigo or the really dark royal blue, and I started filling in the shadows and the shadowy parts a little bit more, bit by bit. Now this is a tiny little skull, and I really took my time with it, but it came out cute. I liked the colors that I had in there. Just adding bits of shading around the bottom is definitely more shadowy, so I added that in there. Filling in more aqua, more color. And then using the black and that dark indigo pencil to really fill in the shadow at the bottom and give it some contrast. And then in those white highlights on the skull, I added a tiny bit of pink for accent. And then I got a white paint marker and I kind of blocked out the black outline around the skull. Then I filled in the background just a bit around it so the skull would pop out. And I had a smudge on the page. Tried to cover it up with a little bit of white paint. And then just a little bit more of this indigo accent on the bottom of the pumpkin for depth. And there you have it, a glowing green pumpkin from the season of the witch. So I hope you found this video to be inspiring, and I hope you'll color something in an awesome glow in the dark green. Thanks for watching.